Welcome to part two of how to make a compliant assessment tool or how to write a compliant assessment tool. I was talking about the mapping document earlier as well, and on my computer I couldn't really find it. I just put it somewhere, but I couldn't find it. So here you go. You have already got a very good understanding of the unit of competency from TGA website now. So without wasting much of the time, we'll just go ahead and then open the contents for a mapping tool. So again, we're talking about the same four-wheel drive unit of competency that we're talking about. So this is the mapping tool that I already have kind of put down so that you would have a fair idea to what is it going to be. So obviously this is a course mapping document. What I'm saying, why I'm saying this unit of competency is a course, because I'm going to deliver it standalone. So this will become a course. So then you can deliver this course as a standalone unit. So you can call it a course. Or sometimes you want to put a number of unit of competencies to make one qualification. So it's up to you. So for me, I'm just going to show you how to do that just for one unit of competency. So what I have done, so you would have a clear idea, I will open, so I will open this one as well on the side so that you would then know how did I do it. Very simple. So I told you that there were three components that we were going to talk about. So one was the PC, which is the performance criteria. Then we're going to talk about PE, which is a performance evidence. And then lastly, we're going to talk about our knowledge evidence, which is the KE. Again, if there are assessment conditions or range of conditions, you should put that one in the mapping document as well. So what I did was I actually took a template, and then obviously on this one, we come down as I talked about performance criteria. We talked about that there are 6 different elements, as you can see in the performance criteria, and then it has got each element has got sub-element, which is on this side, as you can see on my screen. So simply what I did was I actually created a template, and I have put my elements on this side, as you can see, and all my sub-elements on this side. So when I create something, I create it so where I'm going to map it, one particular thing. I explained to you earlier in the previous video that the performance criteria only gives you the tonality, right? So it means that whatever is written in that, you can either map it to the practical, or you can map it to the theory assessment. As far as you are writing something for the student and assessing them on that, that's enough for PC. A lot of people would just tell you that PC, you have to write the theory or you have to write a practical only, which is not correct. So as far as you can assess a student or a learner onto this particular criteria, it is more than enough. It's absolutely up to you. How do you justify that? Though, is that the best way to do it? This is something as a trainer or assessor, you would have to make a decision. Now, what I've done is, we will not talk about the learner's manual at the moment. This will be in my other videos that I will just show you how to write a training package, which will then have a PowerPoint, will have the learner's manual and stuff like that. At the moment, we're talking about only assessment tool. So we talk about the theory and the practical assessment. So in this one, say this is the element, and element is asking, say, for example, 1.4, and it said, identify and demonstrate the purpose and use of the front wheel hubs. Or say, for example, I come down and I will say here, identify recovery hooks and mounting features. So for example, 1.6. What I've done is I have actually gone onto the practical, and then my observation list that I'm going to explain to you how to write your observation list. So 2.1 and 2.9, that means my practical number 2 would have my observations. And your observations are what basically you're observing your student is doing. So basically, my 2.1 and 2.9 are, what are they saying? They're saying that identify recovery hooks and mounting features. So because it's a technical unit, so when you are doing, um, say for example, what is it basically saying is that on your vehicle or on the car there is a hook or mounting features available. So basically I'm going to ask my student to do something around it because it's practical. I will say, can you please go and identify a hook for me, or can you successfully, or can you hook this car with this strap, for example. So then they will just hook the strap to the mounting device over there on the car, and an assessor, as an assessor, you will actually see that. It could be very simple if you are talking about someone is trying to make a cake. Say, for example, you would say, um, can you put the cake in the oven safely? All right, so that is something which is practical. You can also ask a theory question around it, and you can say, can you please tell me what are the safety precautions you are going to take when you're putting a cake into a hot or preheated oven? So that's a theory question, that's a practical aspect. So what you want to do is that you want to, because PC is going to tell you the tonality, you're basically covering off both. So what you have done is you have done the copy pasting of in your template. So you have pasted element 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. And then you have obviously gone next, as I said, leave about the learner's manual, talk about practical assessment and theory assessment. So obviously in the practical assessment and theory assessment, I covered it. What you want to make sure is at least one of those is covering it. So you cannot have a blank practical assessment here or a blank theory assessment. What does it mean? It means that you have not written any theory question that satisfies this, and you have not done any step so that you can actually assess a student as well. So there is no practical assessment part onto it as well. So that is kind of not right, because you will then have a gap in that. Right, so moving along, so you have done that. Then you come to the PE. Now, if you can see my PE, I've got a practical assessment. So as I said, PE is my practical. So I have made sure that my this column, which is the practical assessment one, it's not empty. You can probably see that in my PE, I've put somewhere theory questions as well. I didn't write a theory question in particular for that. What I wanted to do was I wanted to just ensure that if there was a theory question that was also satisfying this criteria, I was just writing it. But I can get away with that. I can get away with not writing a theory question about it, as far as I'm actually making sure that I am completely satisfying this criteria over here. So I've got the evidence that my learner is able to perform that part, right? So this was really important, and I did that. And I made sure that I am looking at or observing my student, and they're doing all of those things physically. Next is the knowledge evidence. In the knowledge evidence, now I am not in particular thinking about performing as in practical. So I'm thinking about that they will do a theory question around it. So what I've done is I looked at it, and I was telling you how many theory questions you have to write. Look, I had 26 total, say, elements of my knowledge, and you can see that I have written 26 because this is the highest number that I can see on here. I've written 26 questions. So kind of, again, how many theory questions to write, it's entirely up to you. But I would like to see, say, for example, plus minus 4, 5. It depends. Seriously, it depends. If you are dealing with an extensive knowledge criteria, it means that you have to write the theory questions which are proportionate to that, or at least satisfying all that. I don't care if you write 5 questions for all of those, as far as everything is being covered on that. Um, it's great. Assessment conditions are asking me or giving me some of the options. So what I've done is I've put this one as an option. So assessment condition must include access to. So this is not telling me 1 or 2. This is telling me you got to do it. So whatever I put is as an option, whatever is there on TGA, I have written that yes, I am as an RTO fulfilling that condition, and where I'm doing it, it's in the practical assessment normally. So I would say practical assessment 1 or 2. Then must include again, you can see. Then range of conditions, I've put nil in this document because there are none, because as I told you before, there were assessment conditions only in this one, but sometimes you get the range of conditions as well, where you've got more sort of things that you need to provide to perform the practical. So this is, guys, this is how you are going to write the practical or the theory assessment tool, but map it to. Now, what I will do is, if I will be you, I will start only to make this sort of template first. Get the template from somewhere. Try to get all your elements, sub-elements, your PE and your KE done. Once you have done those, and obviously your range of conditions and assessment conditions, once you have done that, then there is a time to actually go ahead and write the assessment. When you're writing the assessment, remember, you are thinking about the level of people you are going to get, or the level what is expected of the students to do. Is it AQF level 2, AQF level 3, whatever is the level, you are going to ask those sort of questions. You are not going to ask people who are really basic and coming for your Cert 2 the questions which are Cert 5 level, because they didn't want that level at this stage. They will be taught when they go over there and if they want to go to that level. You are an expert on that. They might not want to be the expert on that particular competency. So you have to make sure that you are teaching only specific to the unit of competency. Do not teach the university level to Cert 2 basic course. But when it comes to the industrial practices, you want to make sure that your assessment is actually as per the current practices done in the industry. For that, we'd write the industrial consultation, but again, it's not going to be a part of this particular video. And I will share with you that knowledge later on. Let's go with explaining to you a little bit about theory and practical, how I wrote or developed those questions. So let me go to another. So my trainer's guide. So if I go to the trainer's guide, I always, when you write a question, remember you're going to write an answer for that. And this will actually make your trainer's guide. So first, I obviously create a template for my mapping so that I understand what I'm dealing with. And then after that, looking at the mapping, I start developing questions and the practical scenarios and stuff like that. So again, what you have to do for your theory assessment, look at your KE, which is your knowledge evidence. What you have to do for your practical, look at your PE, which is performance evidence, and how you're going to sequence your practical or theory per se, tonality, which is your PC, performance criteria. All right, so what I did was, obviously you will see my theory assessment here. I'll share it with you. Say, for example, my theory assessment is 1. So question number 1, say question number 1 and 2. I want to see where did I put it in mapping? So I will go down to my knowledge just to show it to you. Um, this is performance, this is knowledge. So say for example, if I want to find out where did my one, so first question was tire management principles, and I would have written a question around it so that I can understand what is tire management principle or something to do with tire management. What is overarching thing for the tires? So that would come over here. And then I would have number two, say for example, if I wrote question number two, it will be one of those as well um, in the knowledge. So I will fit it over there and we will say, okay, you know what? So remember, I looked at my questions or developed the questions after I've gone through this. I've gone through this knowledge part first to develop a question. Say, for example, faults in vehicles and ancillary equipment. So this is talking about the faults, and we are saying 23, question number 23 is basically that. So I will go on to that, and I will go to question number 23. It should talk about um, faults in the operation. So I wrote a question, you're preparing to return to two-wheel drive operation. However, the four-wheel drive light is not disengaging. What can you do? So around troubleshooting in this one, the faults. So we talked about this one. And whenever you do write something, you are basically considered um, an industrial expert. You should have a currency in it when you are doing it. If you are not doing it, if you don't have a currency, you don't have enough knowledge, you sit with someone who can then advise you that, yes, you got to do that. This is what we do as an industry. Because a simple phrase would not make sense to me because it would be so general in TGA on the TGA website. But if you talk about the industrial to industrial expert, then what they can do is that they can then say, okay, you know what, they're talking in this context. I remember there was a thing where we had to write entrapment. Now, entrapment could be anything. So in mechanical, one of the mechanical courses and stuff like that, you can have the injury, the entrapment injury when the machine is actually, and you just, your hand or anything or limb gets entrapped. So this is entrapment. However, when you are dealing with a fire cause in the RII package, it means that when the fire is all around it and you're just trapped inside, say for example, or when you're doing confined spaces and stuff like that. So obviously it will make sense for you if you're an industrial expert. If you're not and you're just writing something, you need to sit with someone, proofread it, because we are going to teach the industrial practices to the students through our theory and practical. Giving you another example, I will switch to my PE now, and which is how I was writing the practical. So, so PE is actually telling me to do all those things and observe it, right? And how can I observe it? I have to give or write a scenario. There's so many other ways to do that. I'll show you. I wrote a scenario. Okay, so this is called, one of it is one of the um, evidence that we need to see is how the people are engaging four-wheel drive mode. So they would be going two-wheel drive and then they have to do, or the terrain changes or something changes and then they have to switch to four-wheel drive. And we have to create a scenario around it so that people can then understand it. Sorry, I will share with you that. So I created a scenario, okay, asking people to do that you are here, then you have to go there. Some guidelines are provided to the tutor or trainer, what they're going to do, which is only for the instructions to the trainer, and I've put them on the top. Then obviously I've got a scenario, and that scenario would actually ask students to um, do certain things, and they will be performing it somewhere. So I will probably, if I'm going for a hilly rocky trail or something like it, as I've mentioned, I will look for a hilly rocky trail. So when I was creating the scenario, I knew at that time what is probably be the location where they're going to perform that. So I was creating it that way. I was asking um, people to, say for example, to change the tire, use the jack and stuff like that as well. I wanted them to do the checklist. So all of those things I created or built that in my scenario. And then this is the observation where people are, I'm going to, or as an assessor, you will observe people. So it's just not about tick, 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 tick. You have to actually go and see whether people have actually done it properly or not. So as you can see, I've got several. I've got 1.1, which is saying participated in the JHA construction, and any dangerous hazards were reported to the supervisor. So I will ask my people to do that JHA, say for example, but I will observe if someone is actually, if it's a group JHA, I will see whether someone is actually participating into it or not, and then whether people have actually come back doing all those things that I've actually mentioned. Because as you can imagine, this course would have, um, so driving is actually more dangerous than I mean, there is more probability of you getting into an accident on the road than bitten by a shark. So obviously you would have to do a JHA in that. I just ask them to do it. And then I will just see whether people are actually doing it or not. Then the candidate selected and used the required PPE and equipment. So if I needed them to use a particular thing or anything, say for example, I wanted them to check whether there was enough um, vehicle equipment before they go on to do something. Then obviously I will check whether they have got their road crash rescue equipment, so they have the snap recovery equipment, shovels, jacks, whatever is required. So I'm building at the same time an observation list. So this observation list, where is it coming from? This observation list is actually derived from my PE, which you can see over here. My PE is telling me what I need my student to be doing. And obviously, as an assessor, I will be observing it. So this is something that they would be doing, and I will be observing it. So obviously, just to recap, what you're doing is you will create your mapping document, you put everything in it in just a template, then you go and start working onto your theory assessment or your practical assessment. And what you're looking at a PE, you're looking at for your practical, KE for your theory. I told you the, the rule of thumb as well. Like when you're writing your KE, you want to make sure that um, how many dot points are there, you count them and then do plus minus 5. This is one way to do the assessment tool, which will hopefully then be compliant. So go ahead, um, ask a question if you have to, write to me if something is not clear, um, and good luck. In the next videos, I will be sharing with you how to write a training assessment strategy, which is very important. Auditors are looking for it, and what you need to put into that. How do you make a lesson plan, and how do you make a lesson plan, and then how do you write a learner's manual around it or the training material. Um, and then also the important thing, if you're trying to put everything online, um, remember you need to address the authenticity issue. how would you know if someone is attempting the entire assessment online? They are the ones who are actually doing the assessment and not someone else. So if you have a software that can actually tell you that a person is doing it, and they are the ones who are doing it, well and good. If not, then ask them to do the assessment over there, but then do the verification when they come face to face with you. And obviously the practicals, if you're a good RTO, or you want to build that good assessment tool, you want to make sure that the practical is actually performed where you can actually assess each and every thing in it. Um, and obviously it's their work, so authenticity is also very important. Anyways, that will just get into um, another 40 minutes, and I don't want to do that. So thank you very much. This was the final part of how to create an assessment tool. So obviously there was a part number one. If you miss part number one, part number two might not be making a lot of sense. But if you have done part number one and you have done part number two, I'm confident that you will go ahead and you will smash your goals, write a good, compliant assessment tool. So yeah.